So these are some topics, I guess I'll say, from this last homework check that I saw were troublesome. And it's kind of good to know as you're getting into the review so you're not doing the same thing on the review. Some of us are still having some issues with this whole idea of domain and range. Okay? Domain, again, is left to right. You don't have a choice on this. You can't go right to left. You can't use the y values instead of the x's. You've got to go left to right for domain, and with your range, you've got to go bottom to top. The phones aren't helping you to figure this stuff out. Put them away before I take them. Put the phone away. This is good. I get to put this online. The parents are like, are they having fun? Oh, heck yeah, they have the phones out. Again, that may be another thing some of you are getting distracted by. I don't know. Maybe I need to put these on video. Then I can walk around during the lessons and see what's going on. That'd be kind of fun. I haven't had to do that in a while. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming after that commercial timeout. Range is bottom to top, okay? It's your y values. And the other minor thing I noticed, when part of your range or domain is a number on these, you've got to use the bracket. That number's included. If it's negative infinity or infinity, you've got to use the parenthesis because, again, it goes forever. It doesn't stop, okay? So when you're getting into questions like these, there's a couple of things I have to notice. First part is, if I see an arrow on either end, infinity is going to be part of my answer. Because I think what happens on problems like this is some of you look and you're like, okay, you look and you see points. You're like, okay, so my domain starts over here at -2. And that's usually not the problem. The problem becomes you see this point over here and you want to make the other side 2. But notice there's an arrow that goes through there, and that's going to keep going and going forever to the right and down. Okay, so that's going to keep going. It's infinity. My range, and again, it's a minor thing. Some of you were saying it was from 2 to negative infinity because you noticed the arrow going down, but there's a problem. Range goes bottom to top. If you say it's from 2 to infinity, you're going top to bottom. You've got them flipped. So, when you're doing these, bottom lowest point's going to be way down here at the end of this arrow at negative infinity. And the top is going to be way up here at the top at 2. But again, notice, it's my y value. Okay? Look at the y-axis to see what that value would be, what that number would be. And then number 6 was the same thing, and I think this was the one that was on the homework check that I think may have gotten some of you. Most of you are real good with your domain. Forever to the left, forever keep going to the right. No biggie. But the range is where we saw trouble because I had a lot of -3 to 2. Because you're just like, here's the bottom point, here's the top. And physically, for where I see, I understand that. But again, remember, this arrow means it's going to keep going. That's going to go further than this point. Okay? This arrow keeps going. Well, that's already further than this point. So if I see double arrows, that typically means it's going to be infinity for both. But you've got to follow those values all the way to the end. You can't just stop with the points unless there are no arrows. Okay? If there's no arrows, just go with the points and work it that way. The other topic that I kept seeing kind of happen the same deal, we're still going back to the absolute value equations here. And I'm going to keep saying it just like I said before when we had the last one of these. You have to isolate this before you split it. The other thing with this one specifically was, okay, I'm multiplying that times this. A lot of you are trying to add it to the other side. I can see where you could think that. But there'd have to be a plus here in between for me to do that. This is by multiplying. So here, I've got to divide both sides by that -0.8 first. That's my first job. Because then I isolate my absolute value. Now here was the other thing that concerned me a bit. I'm dividing by a number that's less than 1. If I'm dividing by a number that's less than 1, this number's got to get bigger. And some of you are still getting numbers that were smaller. I'm like, that's one of those instances where I want to get my number sense working. I've got to understand the idea, and some of you don't with fractions. That's why I don't like the calculator. I'm not a big fan of them when some of you want to keep going to the calculator and doing that. Because then you get into a situation like this, and you're not even sure if your answer makes sense or not. So here, when I double check, so this is what my equation should look like when I go to split it. So I'd have k plus 1.8 equals and k minus 1.8 in my equals. And then I get my two answers from that. Okay? But this has got to be by itself. And it is. It's those little detail things. You get enough of those going on a test or a quiz, it really can affect your grade. So I want to make sure it's something you're aware of so you don't have that happen again. And I know this one wasn't on the check, but same idea is working here. I've got to treat this, and we talked about it before, like this is a variable, like I'm trying to get x alone before I split it. I'm going to add my 5 to both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to both. Divide both sides by 9. Don't subtract. I'm multiplying. Now split it. Okay? Has to be alone, just like when you're solving for x or a variable. It's got to be by itself before I go and do this, because otherwise I'll get one answer right, but I'm going to screw up the other one. And again, you don't want to lose half credit on a bunch of questions, because that doesn't really let me know what you actually know then. One last thing. I swear I'll be done here for a bit. The last thing I'm still a bit concerned with, yeah, I can still see that, is this whole piecewise thing. And I finally came to this revelation yesterday after my 6th-hour class left. Our biggest issue here for most of you isn't graphing the line, even though for some of you it still is. The biggest issue is, where does my graph start? Because I was looking through some of the homework checks, and everybody wants to keep starting in all these unique places. And I'm like, oh. So most people I saw that were charting were doing okay. It's those of you that are doing the erasing thing. So I have one more kind of weird way of looking at this that might make you feel a little bit better. So if you are a person who just graphs it and then erases parts, okay? If you're a chart person, I say you keep charting. But if not, here's what I want you to do to make sure you're not getting yourself in trouble. Once you make your dots, okay, for your line, before you do anything else, I'm going to look at the if statement. Okay. If x is less than 1, if you physically have to put numbers on your axis to remind you of where the numbers go, do it. Less than 1. There's 1. All right, where did my graph paper go? This works. I don't even want to look at anything else that's greater than 1. I'm literally going to cover up the rest of the graph so I can't look at it and want to make it part. Because once you get here, now it's like, okay, I can't look at anything else. Well, there's the first dot I see. Okay, that's got to be open. And now I just will connect the dots left that I see. I can't even see the other ones. If you have to physically cover up the rest and then go, okay, now I can get that. That's good. Okay, but notice my answer's not starting at the y-intercept. I know that's the first point you make. I get it. But that's not where my graph's going to start. My graph has to start wherever this if statement is. Same thing for the last one. If I go up 2 and put a dot, then I go up 1 and over 1, up 1 and over 1, and I'm just making lots of dots. And then I look and I see what it says. X has got to be greater than 1. Well, is -1 greater than 1? No. Is 0 greater than 1? No. Ooh, but this 1 is. Okay. There's where my graph starts. I can't look at the rest of it. Close dot. Arrow. Erase. Smile. Done correctly. That's all I want you to be doing on these, okay? And again, I don't care which way, but you've got to figure out one that works for you. Again, this test is going to be a little too important for you. Now, the rest of the time you've got today is going to be available to work on the review. Or if you still need to work on the piecewise stuff from yesterday, that's fine. But the things I want you to keep in mind are the review, the test, hand in hand, same thing basically. I just switched the numbers around. The length's going to be the same. The types of questions are going to be the same. They're going to be in the same places. So if you really can rock this out and make sure you can do every problem on it, the test is going to be easy. If you kind of go, and then you wait until the end, you're going to make the same mistakes you've been making. I don't want that to happen. I want good things going out for progress reports. So like I said, you've got time to work on that today. I can help. The keys are up here for anything we've been doing. Let's see, what else am I forgetting? I don't think I'm forgetting anything else except the fact that I know for sure next Friday is going to be your next homework check. So that's the one thing I know. And I guess